Welcome back. The program still is Shagalinku. It comes your way every Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And don't forget to also join us every Sunday afternoon from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. when we're here to do solely the musical program called ARTV Sunday Splash. That's when it's a live program anyway. We play good songs, and we ask you to also send a text, a WhatsApp, and call during the program to greet your friends and loved ones, just to make your Sunday afternoon a very lovely one. So while you watch Shagalinku every Saturday morning from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., you can also be with us live on Sundays from 12:30 p.m. to 1:30 p.m. on the program ARTV Sunday Splash. Now, I have my guest in the house, like I told you earlier on when we started the program. We're looking at men, we're looking at boys. We're looking at issues surrounding societal vices. A lot of times, we've always heard on the media what mothers should teach their girls to do. If there is rape, they will say the girls shouldn't walk in the dark, they shouldn't go visit men, they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that. The pressure is always on the young girl to be what the society wants her to be. And we're neglecting a very important aspect of the society. Because when you talk about rape, the girls don't rape themselves. When you talk about drug addiction and involving girls in it, these girls don't do it themselves. We also have young boys, we have men who are also initiating these girls into doing all that. And that's why we're looking at fatherhood today. A lot of times, fathers or men have always left their roles for mothers and women to play. I believe that in every family, the man has his role to play, the woman has his role to play. There needs to be that synergy between the father and the mother to make for a better society. Anyway, I have a gentleman in the house who's been in the field of counseling, peace building, blah, blah, blah. And I won't dare even introduce him. I want him to do the introduction by himself. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
I am so elated to have you after like 3 years of wanting you to be on the show.
Ambassador, I think it's more of a privilege for me than yours. Thank you very much for bringing me into this program.
Yes.
I'm so happy.
Yes. Before you go on to introduce your name, I first of all must say on behalf of Shagalinku that we appreciate what you do in the field. We know you're a clergyman, but then some people could just decide to just do the clergy work and go sit in their rooms. But you are always out there in the field trying to broker peace, trying to make sure that humanity stands. Well, for those of, you're a household name, you don't need introduction, but let's assume those of our listeners and viewers who watch from YouTube outside this country would like to know your name, what you do before we even talk about our topic of discussion, sir.
Okay, I am Reverend Zephaniah Isah, and I'm the senior pastor of the Assemblies of God, number 35, that's Gold Coast Road, Sabongeri, Kano. I am the assistant district superintendent. I was one time the PFN chairman in Kano State for 7 years.
Wow.
And ESCO in the
Is that a 2-term? Or a third term?
A 2-10 and maybe
plus
one added year by privilege.
Okay.
And then I was one time the national men's director, Assemblies of God Nigeria. And then I'm into some other programs, like I'm with the International Sports Coalition. I anchor in the Nigerian coalition, which we center on youth and children.
Okay.
And then out of that, we got the issue of fatherhood. Because we discover as we centered on youth and children, it now down on us, where are the fathers?
Yeah.
Where are the parents? You can't get the children without getting the parents.
Exactly.
So we now brought the idea of this fatherhood.
Okay, so let's even start from first things first. Some people might not even know what fatherhood is all about. And then I would like to just ask two questions in one. What is fatherhood? And then why are we seeing a shift? Because this thing is not even just an African thing. You open the newspapers, you see juvenile delinquencies, you see teenage pregnancy, you see so much happening in the field. So what is really fatherhood? And are fathers living their roles as fathers? And bottling up or giving more of the burdens to the mothers to play both the roles of a father and the mothers as well?
Okay, fatherhood has to do with the fathers taking their position because, as the scripture says, man was created first before the woman. And in marriage, as we see through the scriptures in the book of Ephesians, God gave the man, as the head of the family. So without him in the family is headless. And where you don't have the head in the family, there is always a very big problem. And that is why we came up with the issue of fatherhood, so that fathers can take up their responsibilities, so that fathers can sit up and know that this is, the issue, this is the problem. And I want to tell you, there is fatherlessness everywhere, not just in Africa, but it's more in Africa. Researchers have shown that about 90% of the crimes that are committed by men. And about 60% of the street children that you see are children that are out of homes where the father is not there. And when I say the father is not there, it is in two ways. It's either that the father is not there and is not responsible, or the father is not there entirely. Okay. It's either he's not there by reason of death, or he's not there by reason of being absent from the home. Because we've discovered that there are some fathers that have run away from home. Some of them have left the wife and the children. And some of them, out of maybe pressure or whatsoever. I have a story of one that the wife gave birth to triplets. He came to the hospital, saw that the wife had triplets, and he told him, "I'm coming," and he never returned. So we have issues like that. So fathers are actually missing in the home. And then that is the reason why we have crimes everywhere. Now, it's more in Africa. You find war in Africa. I want to tell you, go and find out those children or those young men, either youth or men that you call them, that are involved in kidnapping, in rape, in armed robbery, in so many of these. They are either coming from a fatherless home or they are coming from a disjointed family. Disjointed family is in the sense that either the father and the mother, they are not living in peace, and something have come in. So these children don't have a role model. They just wake up and take their decisions, and whatsoever their hearts tell them, that's what they do. Or they get, advice
pressure
from their peers.
Okay.
And then their peers cannot give them the real
Solid,
advice because they don't have experience. I want you to know that psychologists have discovered that there are stages of child upbringing. From age 0 to age 6 or 7 is the mother impact year. And from age 6 or 7 to age 11 or 12 is the father impact years. And from the age of 11 or 12 to the age of 17 to 18 is the peer group impact years. And then from 18 to 21 and to 25 is the second tenor of the father's impact year. So you see that the mother's impact year is the beginning of the child. That is from age 0 to 6 or 7. It differs from environment. Like in Africa here, sometimes to 7 or 8. So if you look at it very well, you discover that the father has a role in the upbringing and the development of that child, whether a male or female. So that between that age of 6 or 7 to 11 or 12, if the father is not there, something is totally missing.
Okay.
And the child will grow up with that thing missing. So you see the child misbehaving at a point in time because the time he needed the father to confer authority on him as a guide, to teach him, to let him know that he is not a vagabond, he is not a street child. That time is not there. So it is always missing. That is why sometimes you see somebody that is of age but is not matured. 50, 60, is still behaving like a child. Why? He missed that period. And once a man grows up and discovers that he has missed that period, that's why sometimes you see some people committing suicide. Some of them leaving the home, some of them behaving anyhow. And, there is a dangerous trend that I'm seeing right now. That trend is this. Well, in Europe, America, and other places, you see them, promoting the issue of single parenthood. And many times when you hear single parenthood, I want to tell you 80% is the mother and the child. It's not the father and the child. It's only 20% is
they have custody of the child.
Because the father, of course, he doesn't stay at home. He's always outside doing one thing or the other. So you see single parenthood, mothers raising children.
All alone.
All alone.
To work.
You have to work, go to this, and all of this. Yes. And at the end of the day, that child will be missing the presence of the father, the impact of the father. So you see that child growing up. In fact, the research have shown that homosexuality started out of that. The child grew up and discovered that he doesn't know the difference between a boy and a girl. And something came into his mind, and then he started misbehaving. Even lesbianism. Most of them started from those, disjointed families and maybe single parenthood that you talk about. So it is a very serious issue. So we've discovered now that 60% of the problems that we have in the society today, I stand to tell you, is caused by lack of fathers. Fatherlessness is a serious issue. And now, if you see what is happening right now in Africa, most especially in this country, you see God has helped us that some women have decided to take everything, to take their destinies in their hands. Okay. So they will not leave the responsibility to the man. They will always try to work hard and contribute their quota. But it's very unfortunate that some women, while they are doing that, they have discovered that some of the men, once they discover that the women are working very hard to meet up with the challenges of the family, they leave everything in their hands.
Down and completely not do
Sometimes anything. You see them completely not doing anything. So we have lazy men all over the place who are not ready to do anything. I can tell you, we've seen the statistics from state to state. And we have discovered most of the states and the communities where there are crimes and where things are not going on well, the men are lazy. They can't do anything. You can imagine a man waking up early in the morning. Instead of him doing something, he will not do anything. He will be sleeping because the wife will provide. He'll be sleeping. In fact, there are cases where you've seen the woman pays the house rent. She provides the food.
The school fees.
She pays the school fees. She does almost everything. In fact, she buys clothes for the man. Haba. That man,
even gives
that man should be flogged.
That he uses to go outside and chase other
girls. Yes, and chase other girls. You see, so it's very terrible. So I want to use this medium to challenge the men's folk. Let them wake up to their responsibilities. God gave them that responsibility. It's not their own father that gave them that responsibility, because the issue of marriage is not the initiative of man. It is God that instituted marriage. Everywhere, in both religions, you discover that it is God that instituted marriage. And since it is God that instituted marriage, it is God that gave the responsibility to the man, not his own father, not his own grandfather, so that nobody will think, I'm inheriting anything that is handed to me by a man. No, God gave them. And I want to tell you, I've discovered that every man that can take care of his family will never suffer hunger. He will never lack. It's a mystery, sir. I have been teaching it. Yes, the money will come because you are now a trustworthy,
a channel of
blessing, a trustworthy person. What do you call it? A steward. A steward. You are now a steward. And when God sees that you are responsible and you are doing what he asks you to do, you are taking charge of these things, you will never lack.
Wow. Okay, we'll take a short break now. Remember I told you that he's loaded. If we leave him, he could go on 3 days and not stopping. Now, we'll be wrapping up with my guest. It's been very incisive. I wish I have all the time to really talk with him on so many other issues, but I know I will be doing a second segment soonest, to talk about other issues, because I am always worried the world is going gender, the world is going women, the world is going girls. And each time I'm in some forums, I ask them, what about the men? Let's also drag the boys as we drag these girls. Because when we train these girls to be good girls and leave these boys and not train them, we're also breeding rapists that will eventually, at the end of it all, contaminate the good girls that we've trained. So in as much as I believe in gender equality, I also believe that everyone should be carried along and to do all that. And back to my guest, let's even look at finally the role of discipline in a home as we wrap up the program.
Okay, I would say the role of discipline in the home is the work of the father and the mother.
Okay.
But the father champions that. Now, most of the stubborn children that you see, some of them, they are exhibiting that as a result of sometimes low self-esteem.
Okay.
And that is why they go on drugs. They go on drugs because people look at them in the society as people who are nobody.
Wayward.
They are nobody, they can't do anything, because some of them are dropouts in school, some of them cannot do one thing or the other. So they resort to drugs. And by the time they resort to drugs, they kind of do some things to make them, convince the world that they are somebody. And that's why sometimes they go into crime. They go into what do you call it? Cult.
Social vices. Okay.
Some of these cults that you see, they go into that.
Just to belong
somewhere.
Beef up their esteem and all that.
Yes. Okay. So, now, when the mother plays her role very well, the father too should play his role very well. Now, in the real sense, what the mother should do is to complement what the father should do. Because from the age of 18 to 25, like I said, the father brings back either the young boy or the young girl and confer authority on them to tell them that they are great people. The Hebrews have a culture, and to some extent the Indians, they have a culture of, you see, in Africa, we were doing that. I don't know what happened. This age group issue.
Okay, yeah.
Yes. So the Hebrew have this age group issue at a point in time when the child has become 18, most especially to the men, he will gather all his friends, and there will be a celebration. Yes. The father will buy a sword. In the Hebrew culture, he will buy a sword and then plan a party and invite his people. In the midst of the party or at the end of the party, the father will call the boy and beat his chest and tell him, you are now a man. You can now marry. He now will give him the sword and said, you are now a man. You can defend yourself. You can defend your family. You are a strong person. From that time, the young man feels he is somebody. He does not need drugs to tell him that he is somebody. He does not need his friends. His father has already told him. So he's now a happy person. Anywhere he goes in the world, he will succeed. Anywhere he goes and anything he tries to do, he will get it. Because the father have told him who he is. But when the father is not there, he grows up and sees things. He will pick anything he sees on the road. And that is the danger. So the discipline of the children is in the hands of the father, and the mother should complement it. You see, from that age 0 to age 6, the child will be too close to the mother and will be too used to the mother, to the extent that any time the mother talks, it's not all the time the child will take the instruction of the mother, because they are too close. They have become too used to each other.
Like age mates. Age mates.
You understand? Because he jumps over her, he does all of this. So he is now no more afraid of her. He can respect her, but he's no more afraid of her. It takes the father. It takes the father. By the time he brings out that his
harsh voice or baritone, hey,
the boy will sit up or the girl will sit up. Who is there? Who is talking? It's my dad. Now, I want to encourage the fathers to make sure that they live a good life before their children. Because children learn from what we do more than what we say. That is the real thing. They learn from what we do more than what we say. If you tell lies and you tell your child not to tell lies, I want to tell you it's impossible. That child will tell lies. But if your child discovers that you don't tell lies, the child will not tell lies because he sees that you don't do that. Okay. You know, so if we want our children to be good, we have to start with ourselves. We have to start talking to ourselves. We have to start changing our lifestyle before the children. In fact, it has been discovered that men that beat their wives, there is every possibility that their children too will beat their wives. We have traced that, and you will see it happening. Most men that beat their wives, their children grow to beat their wives. And most girls that talk to their husbands anyhow, or women that talk to their husbands anyhow, there is every likelihood that their own daughters too would talk to their husbands anyhow. Why? Because they saw it in the home. Because they say charity begins at home. So that is the issue. So the father should take the lead in disciplining the children. And once he does that, let the mother complement. Let them have a unanimous, how will I put it? Let them unite together in doing it. Now, we have seen that in most homes where we have a lot of problems, we discover that while the father is correcting the child this way, the mother is dismantling on the other way. And sometimes you discover that the children are divided.
Yes, it becomes a conspiracy, so to say.
Yes. So it's very wrong. So when the father is teaching the child or correcting the child or leading the child, disciplining the child, the mother should complement. You know, there was something beautiful that happened in my own family. Anytime any of us do anything that is bad, our father will plan to flog you. And then as boys now, you know, we can always outsmart him. So our mother will send us into the room to pick something. Then the father will be sitting by the door. Once you jump in to pick that thing, he will come and stand at the door. You know? And my mother will go and bring the cane.
Partner in crime.
Oh, my brother. So where will you
run to?
You know, as he's flogging you, she will tell him, beat him well. You know? So you have no escape. But in some families, while the father is, you know, correcting the child, the mother is on the other side saying, why? Do you want to kill this child? You don't even know the pains of labor. The issue is that she's the only one that labored.
Exactly.
When the child is coming, both the man and the woman,
everyone
all of them pass through labor. It's just that her own is the womb labor.
Exactly.
And the man is the pocket labor and some other
and the tension
labors and the tension
of not being a widower.
Of course, until the child is born. So everybody has to put his hands on deck to make sure that the children are trained. I want to believe that if the fathers will take their place and the mothers will take their place, because there is what we call motherhood too. It's not only fatherhood. Yeah. We have the place of the mothers, so that the mothers too can take their place. If both will do their work very well, we'll have a good society. And I pray that, you know, God will help us to start that now. One other advice I will leave before I go is this, that our people have a saying that every Good Friday that will come, you will see the sign from Wednesday. I want to advise some of our girls. They see a young man. He's not doing anything. He's not doing anything. He's not earning anything. And he tells you he loves you. He wants to marry you. And you, as the young girl, because of his sweet mouth, you follow him. And sometimes I've seen it, that the girl will pay the dowry. She will pay the house rent. She will get the house and do other things behind. Marry that guy. You will know that he is not the one that married you. You are the one that married him. Those things you started doing before marriage, you will continue with them. Because he won't do anything, I promise you. He will not value the marriage.
And it affects the kids later on again. So it doesn't care if they send them out of school for school fees.
So please, for goodness sake, if you want to marry as a young girl, look at that person. It's very serious. In the book of Genesis, God has to put the man into the garden to do a work, to tend the garden. So he did not bring Eve to meet a lazy man. Eve met a hardworking man. You know, remember when he asked Adam to name the creature. It's not easy for one person to sit down and name all the animals. It's an intellectual work. So the man was not lazy. And I want to advise the men, come on, you have a future. You don't just fold your hands and, people give you things. God is so wonderful that all that he gave us don't just emanate like that. It emanates by doing something. There are so many things that are there for us in the future, but those things come out as we work, as we put our energy out, as we use our brain to work. So if you fold your hands, of course the scripture says a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands. So poverty is coming upon the person. So I want to advise that the young men too should stand up and do something. And I want to encourage our young men. Drug is not the issue. Alcohol is not the issue. Crime is not the issue. Go back and trace your way. And God will make you a better person. And I trust that fathers will wake up and do their work.
Wow. Thank you very much. Let me give you a presidential handshake.
It's a privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, people, I want to thank everyone who's been part of this production. I really want to thank my guest, Reverend Zaf, who's been here to talk with us on fatherhood and all that. In case you enjoyed what you watched today, let's make it a date next Saturday. I also want to thank all my crew, everyone who's been part of the production. Papa D, to Val CVC, to Chisholm, to is it Godwin or Godsin, but to all of us here, and yes, to Aisha as well, to everyone who's contributed, to all our guests, Salim, Dana Bell, and everyone who's made this episode a wonderful one. Let's do it again, God willing, next week. And thanks from the top to the bottom. From our Managing Director, Hajjasa Ibrahim, to our Director of Programs, and yes, to our Manager of Programs, and to our editors, our engineers, our TCs, and everyone who's made this production a success. Thank you all. My name is Ambassador Emmanuel Gabari. Until I see you on Sunday, that's tomorrow, we'll be here to do Sunday Splash from 12:30 to 1:30, and next week, Saturday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. for a fresh edition of the program, Shagalinku. Keep having a wonderful time, and peace in Nigeria. Bye-bye.